you're a filmmaker named Matt Johnson.
Yeah,
The lead guy in the film is also a filmmaker named Matt Johnson.
but he's younger.
He's younger, yes, okay. But my mind immediately starts wondering what sort of personal inspirations. Is there a lot of you in this character, a lot of you in this story? Because it's a lot of life combined with art, combined with life. And so why don't you just talk a little bit about what the inspiration was for the project, how the idea came about, and stuff like that.
That's a lot. Well, definitely, I mean, it's not, I can't lie and say that that's not really me and Owen. Like, we really are, because we didn't have a script per se, we had a structure. So all the scenes are improvised, and we're just trying to be ourselves as we were when we were younger. And the style for that, and the reason I use my real name and Owen uses his real name, is because we were trying to get at what we really were going through in high school, which is hard because to fake that stuff, like movies that try to do bullying or try to do these types of things with a script and actors, they always suck. Like it's never real. Like you're watching and you're like, that's not, like that was not my experience. And so what we wanted to do was do something that was really, really exactly like what we went through, or get as close as we could. And that's why we shot it that way. And that's why I use my name and Owen uses his name, just because that seemed like the only way to do it.
You know, another question that both I know myself and a lot of the other programmers have when watching it, you know, maybe it's different in Canada, but I know that in the United States, it would seemingly be difficult to get a school to let you shoot something like that in the halls of their school unless you just did it without them knowing, which,
Right.
So was that a difficult process? Like, how were you able to pull all that off?
Well, yeah, that was definitely difficult. We shot at 5 schools, actually. There's 5 different schools in the film. And that's basically all from our producers. Jared Rabb got his old high school in a small town to agree, and then Matt Miller got his high school to do it. And what we would, I mean, I guess like, what we did, which is sort of crazy, is Owen and I like enrolled, not like literally on paper enrolled, but literally entered school as students. So a lot of what you see is us in school with real students. We're wearing lav mics and they're shooting through the window. So nobody knows that we're making a movie.
Wow.
And what we did, and because we figured we wanted to get kids reacting the way the kids really reacted, and we wanted to talk to people sort of at their own level, and we also wanted to be in that environment, which is sort of really important to us as well. And what we did, because obviously that's complicated legally, was we shot days and days like this, and then because the schools were so cool, we could go back with our footage and be like, so we're going to use this shot and this shot and these kids. We don't know their names. Can you help us? And they were like, yeah, we'll get their parents for you. And so everybody signed releases after we'd done it.
That is not wow.
Yeah, people have said that, but I don't think that's true because I actually think small town Canada and small town United States are very similar. So obviously that's not New York or Los Angeles or even downtown Toronto, but that definitely is like small town New York, the same as it is in small town Ontario. So. And plus, people love being in movies. I mean, that was the thing, what it sort of comes down to. Anyway, so yeah, that's how we did that. We were very proud of it. And the other reason we had to do it is because we couldn't pay all those fucking kids. How are we going to get like 100 kids every day to walk around us while we just mumble conversations for 7 hours a day so we can use like a 30-second clip of it? Yeah, guys, just another week of this. $50 a day per kid.
Were any of the bullies who were bullying you actual kids that you just pissed off to the point where, or were those all your actors?
It was a mix. I think it's probably obvious. I'm sure you guys can tell who we placed and who was real. If you can't, that's good. Like, we were trying to play with it. Like, Owen and I just acted like losers for a long time. And Owen knows like how to do that because, believe it or not, he's a high school English teacher. So he sort of knew like the behaviors that would elicit these behaviors out of kids. So it's a mix. It's a mix. We wanted to mix the real with what we had written and done. So yeah, some of it is real.
Well, you guys got your asses kicked a lot.
Yeah, we
It was
did.
very convincing. It looked some of it quite painful. I don't know if it was, but
It was awful. Like a lot of that, the hardest stuff was when we'd have to do something with an actor. So that first scene where we're talking about Pulp Fiction, we shot that scene like 50 times, and every single time we've got to get like thrown on the ground and beaten up. And I always got it worse because we'd always be like, don't touch Owen. He's so pretty, he's so good looking. So you couldn't have his face all mangled, but you wouldn't be able to tell.
well, it was convincing.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna throw it out to the audience now. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask Teen Dirty? Right there.
What film were you watching when you were eating popcorn, laying on the ground? And
Should I say? Or should That's the one thing that we haven't got a total clearance on. We cleared everything in the film except for we're watching Born Identity. It's the best fucking movie ever. and it was crazy. We tried to crop it out just enough so you couldn't see it, but I still wanted it to play on the laptop. But I mean, I'm not ashamed.
You literally picked the one clip.
The one thing that we don't have a clearance for.
It didn't seem like the Born Identity at all.
It is the best scene for the Born Identity. When he breaks out the window and he's scaling along it, and they cut all the SFX, and you're like, why would they do that? And they just have that piano playing, and you're like, it's insane. And I say that in the movie because I was remembering how good it was. That's true.
Anyone else? Yeah, in the far back.
I got 3 untactful questions for you.
That's fine. You can
And
ask.
by the way, it was really, really good. How old are you?
Really brutal question. I have 2 questions. It was really good. How dare you make a movie like that?
So, how old are you? Have you made a feature before, and how did you fund it?
Those are great questions. So no, this is a whole team's first feature other than Matt Miller, who had a feature here in 2008 called Surviving Crooked Lake. And he was actually the reason that we were so juiced to come back here because he said, he basically described this exact thing. He described what's going on now. So he had made a feature, but none of the rest of us have. We're all sort of best friends from film school. That's how we all know one
I'm not
another.
best friends with them.
He's not. No, he's the adult. He's in charge of us. But the rest of us all met in film school. And this movie was surprisingly cheap. Like when you ask where we got the money, there really wasn't any money. So I mean, the things that we had to worry about later were clearances, like for songs and stuff. But amazingly, because of the content of the film, we were able to get artists to do this stuff for almost nothing. Like the licenses that we paid for, I mean, I don't know how we did it. David Heyman, our music supervisor, just worked incredible deals. Because the subject matter is, like, you can make an argument that it's relevant and it's a film that should be made. At least that was the argument he was making. I won't make that argument. But he was able to get artists on board for very, very cheap. So we got lucky. And all of our post was done really cheap too. So really, there was not a lot of money. Like we just paid for it ourselves.
And a lot of favors, being really nice to people.
Yeah, we're from Toronto, so like everybody knows one another. It's not like where everybody in Los Angeles is asking for free post mixing, and you got to be like, no. In Toronto, like there's 2 or 3 independent features made a year that are any good. so that answers that.
Another question, right here.
This movie was so ballsy. You are definitely my hero.
Well, we should show my balls.
Yes. I guess 2 things. So, I recently made a movie, and I had a thought of like, I want to make this semi-docu style, and essentially everybody was like, "That's retarded. Make a real movie. Do it the right way." And I'm wondering if people tried to talk you out of doing it this way.
A lot of us made a web show called Nirvana the Band the Show, which is basically the same language as this. It literally is. It's like this, except if it was more of a travesty. That word means not what you think. I just learned the definition of that word the other day, but it does not mean what you think. I don't remember what it means. It's not a joke. But we were going to make a straight narrative film based on that web show, and I think we all just really like this idea of making a film from the perspective of these guys that they would have to make. I mean, we weren't saying like we want to make a movie really cheap, so we'll make a doc-style movie. It really sort of had to be like this because we wanted the voice of the kids to propel the film. We were watching obviously like Man Bites Dog. I mean, that's the big influence. And then what is that? Give Me Shelter. Like we were watching those docs and trying to think of how you could combine those things narratively to do interesting things that hadn't been done before. So I would encourage you to make a movie like this because if you can get the right style, it's like, not that it's easy, but it's cheap. It's much cheaper because this, I mean, you're literally looking at, I'm not exaggerating, the entire crew. This is everybody. We had like a couple people come in and do assistant camera sometimes, but this is it. Like it was the 4 of us in a basement for a month, sleeping, playing Mario Kart every day, and just shooting, and that's how this movie got made. In the far back row.
Yeah, how did you decide when to acknowledge the crew that's supposedly filming this, like when you offer them popcorn?
Very interesting question, and you should tell your Hemingway story, but the original film actually had like 20 minutes at the beginning that explained everything in terms of how the film was being made, explained the crew. That's Jared, normally, that I'm talking to, and it's his hand that comes in and gets the popcorn. And whenever I'm talking with the camera people, I'm always talking with Jared. And we explained all that stuff, and it was all really nice and neat, and it was like very clear. And we were watching the film, and it just sucked. Like everything about it was so bad. And by the time the story got started, like we had lost it. And then Owen said this great thing that Ernest Hemingway heard from F. Scott Fitzgerald, which was any like work of fiction, the best way to make it great is to just cut the first 30 pages and then go. And that's literally what we did. We just cut the first 20 minutes and then played it, which I think is important. I'll tell a quick story. My favorite film of I think it was 2011, was In Time, the Justin Timberlake movie, which is a piece of shit when you watch it beginning to end. But when you walk in 20 minutes late, it's incredible. I watched it alone in a movie theater with tears in my eyes because I didn't know what was going on. And I was like, oh my God! And I kept looking at it really inspired me to just be like, don't explain anything. Don't explain anything. That's no wonder why your arm is glowing. It's so much cooler. It is. Try that trick, you filmmakers, literally. Take the beginning out of your movie and just have it start. Like, sort of when the inciting incident starts, which is what we tried to do. Because it's less boring. Any other questions? Right there, right there.
Well, on that level, how much did you guys talk about the disclaimer at the beginning to kind of ground it in like, this is real footage? Because I feel like that's another one of those things where like, nobody made people think this is real footage.
Of course.
But like, what kind of discussions did you guys have about that disclaimer?
Well, one of our original problems with the film was that the first 30 minutes is like stupid kids making a stupid movie. And so you're watching stupid kids, well not stupid kids, but like, you know, immature kids make a dumb movie for school. And it gets to a point where 20 minutes in, if you have no idea what this film is really about, you'd be like, this is garbage. Like, why am I watching this? And as compelling as some people may find it, without knowing that it's going somewhere eventually, we thought that audiences would disengage with it. We were certainly feeling that way because the jokes we've heard 100 times, and you watch it, it's almost like, let's get to the real conflict of this story. And so we wanted to put that disclaimer at the front, one, to make it, to kind of re-inject that doc feeling so that, I mean, obviously nobody thinks this is real, but there's something funny about movies like Borat or anything that uses this style where you're like, but is it real? But is that, but you know what I mean? And so that just sort of helped us play that note a little more.
We finished the film on Friday, like 8 days ago, and it was literally the last thing.
It was the last thing.
It was there, and we debated, do we take it out, do we change the wording? But
I think at Alter Ego in Toronto, the best color house you could ever go to. They charged us literally 1% of their normal fee. 1%.
More, I see a question all the way in the back.
I really think a lot of people should see this film widely. It doesn't feel Canadian to me. It feels like anybody could enjoy it in North America. So
Isn't that disgusting how that's a compliment?
I
agree with you, but it really is disgusting. In fact, it goes so far that they even printed us in the book as Americans. If you look at the Slamdance book, it says we're from America. Because I guess the movie was good. Canada paid for our flights.
I just want to know what your plans are to get more people to see it. Are you planning on, showing it at more festivals, or where can
We don't have a plan. I mean, we just finished the film. We have an amazing team that's repping it at XYZ, and they love the film, and we love the film, and we feel the same way you do. That this is a great film to start a conversation that seems sort of critical at this time. So, I mean, we all feel the same way that you do, and we're hoping to see good things from it. Is that, I mean, obviously I can't be like, yeah, we're going to project it on the moon.
Right back there.
It's obviously it's a film about friendship, and it's much more.
That's a Canadian.
Yeah, good take on Canadian cinema. But what I'm saying is that the school shooting kind of overwhelms it in a way, but in a good way in this instance. And what I really liked about the film is that it actually does a good portrait. Not that I have friends or that I know people like Psychopath, for instance, but right. I do think it is actually a really, really good and insightful portrait of a psychopath in kind of how you have him being sympathetic somehow. And I was just wondering, because earlier you were super critical about the way bullies are represented in cinema in general. What is your take on like evil and how evil is represented in general? Because I personally do. Anyway, I'll let you.
That's sort of a philosophical question that kind of gets at, in one way, kind of what we were trying to get at with this film, which is complicated because it's obviously a very touchy subject, but all of the stuff that Owen and I do in terms of making our movie is not like shot for shot based on, but based on the films that the Columbine killers made. They were like young filmmakers and made videos all the time. And if like a lot of the stuff that we do is actually referencing a lot of that stuff. So that's sort of why, when you watch those videos, like you can access them, they're in like BBC documentaries. And obviously they're portrayed as very dark, but when you just watch the footage, you're watching like kids who don't know any better just being funny, and they're just trying to make each other laugh. And that's what they were doing when they weren't planning this stuff. Like I think most kids do. And I think when something tragic happens like that, you're exactly right. Just the word evil literally expunges everything else. You just hear these people are evil, or people who do this are evil, and the conversation ends. Now, we can debate whether or not that's good or bad, but I think all of us think that by erasing all that other stuff, the psychological stuff, the mental issue stuff, that you don't really go anywhere. You stop the conversation right away, and people can think, those are the bad guys, we're the good guys. Let's just stay away from them and we'll be okay. Or let's just keep them away from us and we'll be okay. And I don't think that's a long-term solution for and none of us think that's a long-term solution for the psychological problems that are widespread among young people in all of North America. And I think, I mean, I can't speak for the world, but young people. Because bullying used to be sort of seen as just sort of like a rite of passage, and these types of things used to be seen as a rite of passage. And I think people are starting to clue in that the psychological damage you experience when you're young can affect you in much more profound ways than just, oh, I gotta be tougher, Dad. You know what I mean? So that's sort of what we were trying to get at without getting too like explicit about our message, you know? Yeah, right there.
I was just wondering what research process you went through to create.
It's the one guy who isn't here, who was sort of the guy behind that, was Josh Bowles, and he's like basically our other best friend who we went to film school with. And this was his idea. He was sitting at home watching Man Bites Dog and thought, oh, this would be a great idea to do this except from kids. And he and I watched like everything you could about like kids who did this. We watched all the BBC. I mean, if you can seek these out, they're fascinating. There's this one. I mean, they're very tilted. They really are trying to portray these guys as evil. But if you parse all that stuff out of those Columbine docs, there really is a very human portrait of these guys. And so we watched all of that. We read like what we could, but because a lot of this was based on experiences that Owen and I had had, and Evan as well, we sure tried to. I mean, just because they made it into the script, like the stuff that we've gone through. We just tried to mix. No, I wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't a bully. That's not what I mean.
Oh, no, I think that was evident.
Yeah, we tried to mix those two things. So I mean, we researched it, but not to the point where we were trying to do like that story. Yeah. Yes.
When did you actually shoot this? And obviously certain events have happened since then.
Of course.
And this coming out.
In fact, our cast and crew screening was 3 days after the Newtown killing, literally in Toronto. And we were all there. It was actually like really, it was a very different screening than this was here. I mean, it was for friends, but it was like, to answer your question, this was shot about 1.5 years ago, but the process was so long, we finished shooting in, we were shooting 6 weeks ago, so. Right there, never mind.
Is that how you thought that you would end the film?
How do you mean, like with that exact line?
Yeah.
No, we knew that it was going to end like something like this, but we didn't know how we were going to get the resources together to do that scene because we thought it was going to be prohibitively expensive. But again, we were able to get good favors after we'd already had a cut of the film, and we were able to shoot that whole ending. And that line that I say at the end is probably the only like full unscripted line in the movie. That was just a line that just seemed perfect for the end to kind of express where this guy's head was.
But we flirted with quite a few different endings. It didn't always end.
Yeah, get the DVD. There are some hysterical endings to this movie. There's one unbelievable one that Evan's dad suggested, where I go into the school and Chrissy starts flirting with me.
This is great. This is the morning with the bag full of guns.
Yeah.
He goes into the school with the guns, and she starts flirting with
And she started. I mean, this is just because the way we just shoot everything. So people will throw it at us and we're like, yeah, shoot it, because we can just reset and go again and again and again and again. And so this one we were like, Krista, just come up and kind of flirt with me and we'll see where it goes. And so I walk into, I mean, I should be laughing about this, but I walk into the school and she's like, hey man, what's up? What are your summer plans? And I was like, oh. And then we just kind of walk down the hall together and I throw the guns away. And we put up this song by Outkast and it's really, it's very different. It's very different. But I mean, that, obviously we're just trying to have fun.
Let's keep that secret.
Yeah, keep it. Yeah.
Any more questions? See right now.
Yeah, I really love the credit sequence.
Yeah, that was something
amazing. And your character was so upset. I was like, I actually did this whole thing where I was like, this film, he's imagining these people filming him.
Right.
That's where I went.
Okay.
And then that was perfect at the end because it's like, these are all these images from these other films. Like, first of all, I thought that was brilliant. Did you have to like get rights for all like the?
That's the genius of the other guy. It's funny. We had a crew of 100 people. That's another guy who's not here. A young guy named Josh Schonblum, who we had always wanted to do that credit sequence, but we didn't know how. And I was just sort of taking clips out of movies and using those. And he was, and Matt Miller knew him through our university. He's a young guy in this university, and we'd seen something that he'd done similar. And we were like, can you recreate famous movie credits for us? And he was like, yes. And then he came and he saw the movie and he was like, yes, I will do it for free. And so he just spent, it was like in the lab cooking up those credits. So about 90% of what you see is like, although we get them very close, they're all animated, like they're all original, so. I mean, they're not obviously, like the ideas are stolen, but the actual footage is original.
And then there's a few we're still working through that we hope we get to keep.
Yeah, but if not, we'll just animate.
But there was one we submitted to Slamdance was initially was far more flagrant, like big,
Jackie Brown,
Hamburger's face, and
a couple others. I think they're better now. That airplane one is insane. It's perfect.
So we got a question right back there. Too.
Yeah, it's truly astonishing how topical this film is.
Of course.
Even down to like the gun control debate. But knowing that you guys weren't quite finished with post until recently, did anything change kind of in light of the new town?
No, like we wouldn't, even if we wanted to, we wouldn't have the resources to change it. Like this film was, like with that ending, was locked in August.
We shot that in like September.
Yeah, okay, so September, yeah. Right after TIFF, actually. We literally shot it, I think 2 days after TIFF. So, on the 16th or 17th.
We judge all time by TIFF.
That's all that there is. And the rest of the movie was shot before TIFF. But, I mean, to get at your question, no. Everything was sort of settled. And when that had happened, we knew that all of a sudden, this was all of a sudden going to become, as you say, extremely topical. But our attitude is that it will remain topical until these issues are resolved. I mean, it would have been topical if it had come out in 2000. And it would have been topical if it had come out in 1989 in Canada. These things happen, I think, more often than people are willing to talk about openly. And I think that's a part of just being like, whoa, such terrible evil, let's all put this behind us. So I agree, it is incredibly topical now, but heaven forbid, but I'm sure this will remain topical for at least the foreseeable future.
All right, so we got to wrap it up now. Let's have one more round of applause.